Welcome back, everyone. Today I've got the box is what an unboxing for something we haven't looked at in a while. This is a 8 megapixel PoE outdoor rated camera from Amcrest. Now, I actually purchased this for work, so there is a limit to how much I can test on it before it has to be deployed. But with that said, let's go ahead and get it open. And I will have access to these to answer questions. There's just a limit to how much footage I can show out of them since they'll be deployed. So we get a warranty card. Thank you for purchasing an Amcrest product. A little compliance card, another compliance card. Please make sure your device has the latest firmware, community card, quick start guide. And this is nice. This is a printed diagram for where you can drill the holes. A little quick start guide using the Amcrest Cloud and Amcrest View Pro. So this is actually where I'm going to say there's a limit to what I'm going to look at these with is I'm not going to use any of the Amcrest software. We already have Blue Iris, which it used to be what Amcrest even sold for their software, already deployed on site, and that's what's going to be used with these cameras. So in the package we get this little 90-degree security Torx bit. We get these little grommets for running cable. We've got some drill and press mounts. I'm not a huge fan of these. I probably won't actually use them. They're getting mounted in brick. I've got one of these up already. That's why we bought this one. We actually bought like 7 or 8 of them. And I used Molly bolts for that one. I might use Tapcons for some of the rest. Here's the camera itself. And this is where I start to say that there's things I don't like. So I understand why they do it, but it ends up making a bit of a mess for me. Is that I have this big cable with a power injector that it doesn't ship with, and then the actual Ethernet jack. This is just open, waiting for water to get into it and cause trouble. I'm going to use PoE with this anyway, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to, waterproof my PoE connection. This, I'm just going to end up filling with silicone so that it doesn't short out. So, and then there's nothing else in the box. So we get a fairly typical camera. I like a lot of the design on this, and let's run through the stats real quick. So we get 4K recording. It does H.265 compression. We get 165-foot night vision. Let's see, video 4K up to 15 frames a second. It can do 1080 30. I think it can actually do 2560 1440 30 as well. Network connections technically only 10100 because of the compression that's used. We've got a 2.8 millimeter fixed lens with 112 degree field of view. Manual 360 degree pan and 78 degree tilt, which is actually kind of irrelevant just based on the way it's designed. And we get a massive IR LED. So I'm going to loosen this up a little more. I really like how flexible this design is. So based on where it is, I can rotate this ring all the way around. I can rotate the camera all the way around inside of this. So I can tilt this whatever way I want. I can always have the right, what's the word I want to use here? Landscape field of view. I don't have to worry about it being rotated portrait, which is something I've run into on other cameras. And I get a ton of flexibility with this ball and socket design. So this is huge as far as adjustability is concerned. Let's go ahead and take this off and take a look inside of it now. So, and this is fairly simple. We have an aluminum ring It is aluminum, so it's not going to rust. That's just been cast with a tapered insert. And then this has one side that hooks in and another side that screws in. So you get full 360-degree rotation here, and then you get all the rotation inside and out. And this has got a couple of rubber like stops that this rides on when it's loose, and the second you tighten it down, they seat. You can see here I've got 4 recessed holes for these screws. I'm not going to use this just with where it's going. But you know what I am going to do that I didn't do with the one that I installed at work is we're going to look inside this one. And then I will do a video detailing, a full proper review. This is just an unboxing. I'll probably hook it up to my Blue Iris system here and show the setup and go through the settings. The Amcrest software is just not something that... It's not that I don't think it's any good. I just don't need it. I'm already kind of all in on Blue Iris, and because I have other non-Amcrest cameras, I really don't want to use their software and be locked in. Alright, so right away I see good stuff, and can I unplug this without hurting it any? Let's grab the... Nope, I am going to break things if I keep poking at that. Alright, so we'll just leave that be. So we've got a taped in absorbent bag. So if moisture does get in the camera, that's going to absorb it. We have what appears to be the camera module on the other side of this heatsink. We have our... Is that just power here? Power circuitry. Come on. All right. So I've got wiring for the microphone, wiring for the IR LED. I think that might actually be an actual, like, honest to goodness, daylight LED. A micro SD card slot, which I don't think... Oh yeah, micro SD up to 128 gigs. And then the rest of this is pretty standard. We've got our camera lens itself. Now, this is not a model where you would adjust the lens to adjust your focal length. There are other models that do things like that. Pretty standard PCB. So we've got this here, I think, is both power in and out. So this is taking the 48 volts DC that you would receive via PoE and turning it into something that the devices inside here can use. And then we've got a big heat sink for probably the control IC underneath here. Overall, pretty standard. Looks like there's a little button. I don't know. Maybe that's a reset if all hell breaks loose. And then we've got... This is some kind of LED module underneath it. And that's got a heat sink attached to it as well. And there's a gasket on the lens. So let's go ahead and put it back together. Little surprised at some of the construction choices. So they used 2 pins and 2 screws instead of 4 screws to hold the heatsink in. That works fine. That clearly means this is not a design that is meant to be opened a ton, which makes sense when you think about it. So if you're setting up these cameras, at most, you're going to open this up and put a micro SD card in it as a backup. Because that's all it is the micro SD card is there in case something terrible happens and your camera server is dead. So it could be, the past day's recordings. It could be for if the network goes down, take your pick there. But that micro SD card is not your primary recording method. It's a failure or failover, I should say. So that's all it's here for. I'm not even going to put cards in these. I never do. Because I have redundancy on the server side. So that's just wasted cost in my environment. If you're using these residentially, you're probably just going to want to grab a pack of micro SDs, open this up, put them in, which wasn't too hard. Everything here is Phillips screws, and then you're off to the races. All right, so I mentioned we're going to do some setup. Couple of things I want to call out here is it is IP67, so it is waterproof. We saw plenty of design choices inside here that help with that. It does have a limited temperature range, -22 to 140. Most of the U.S. that's going to be fine. There's a couple of places, Alaska, these things are probably going to freeze. And places like Arizona, there may be design considerations you have to make to keep direct sunlight off the camera, which you should do anyway. Anyway, once again, there's that ring. This is real easy to use. We'll go through the setup and play around with the camera. If you have any questions, although some of them I'll have mounted these and have them up, I'll probably detail the installation on at least one of them for the review. But there's only so much that I can do when these are being deployed in a commercial environment. I'll get footage inside here and maybe of the setup, but not of the final locations. That is just a security risk I'm not willing to take off the top of my head. I will look at the Amcrest software, but I am not going to do an in-depth dive on it, since, in my opinion, although there's nothing wrong with that if you wanted to buy just Amcrest cameras, but I generally advise people to pick the appropriate camera for the environment, not necessarily lock in, which means that you could use iSpy, you could use Blue Iris, Zone Minder is another one that people have used. So I generally recommend that the camera and the software come from different vendors. All right. So any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'll cover those as best I can, depending on how long it takes to get all of these deployed. I may even have access to one to still play with that is not considered production at that point. Yeah. And then finally, I want to thank our patrons and anyone who helps support Pocketables by using our Amazon affiliate links for making videos like this and others possible. I want to thank Electrix for providing our opening and closing themes. And finally, thank you for watching.